seconds. Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please hold and you will be able to listen to the show.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? We're kind of getting started a little bit earlier. You can hear the blog talk in the background, so it gives everybody a chance to kind of hop on, see what's going on, and we'll kind of pick this up in a little while. I'm going to step away into about showtime. I appreciate everybody who joins me for this show, and it's open discussion. Whatever you want to talk about, whatever questions you want to ask me. I can't give legal advice. I'm not an attorney. I do not have a license to practice law. I do not practice law. What I do is share with you my experiences, and we'll even show you the results. I'm sorry about that noise, but I'm looking very forward to this show. And I wasn't going to do it today because I have so much other stuff to do, and I'll cover more of it when we go live. Particularly, I get an email from one of the defendants in my federal case. The attorney is seeking an extension of time. Of course, I'm going to grant the extension of time. It's not a big deal. This seems to be the way they take care of most businesses when it comes to when you deal with another party's attorney. So at any rate, hopefully everybody that comes on in, you'll be able to hear me. I hope everybody can hear me on the live. And again, I look really forward to it. I'm going to mute out for a couple of minutes before we get started. In fact, I want to also, I'll make this a little bit smaller so everybody can see me. I'm going to put the links into the chat room for anybody who wants to join the live streams. And I do these live streams on Zoom because it gives everybody or anyone who may have any questions an opportunity to take a look at whatever I'm discussing. And if you have any questions about anything you see, you can again email me or text me, chat, whatever this is. I'm new to all this stuff. I wanted to get put some more information out or content out because there's so much bad information out here that people are running back and forth to, and I get questions quite often from people who have been misguided. I'm not an attorney, but when it comes to the amount of information, the amount of opportunities I've had to go into a courtroom, it's public record anyway. You'll be able to see it. So I'll go ahead and open up a couple of these. I don't know why this thing is swinging. I didn't know this is a part of the way this works. Like my screen is moving from left to right, right to left. But anyway, we'll get a chance to check out some of this stuff. We have a couple minutes before the show starts. I look forward to seeing everybody in a few. So you all, let's get ready, and I'll hop back on at 8 o'clock. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of the Greg Dawes Show featuring DJ Squid. Of course, for those of us, everybody who knows me knows that I was also DJ Squid, even though a lot of the radio world didn't know that Greg Dawes and DJ Squid were the same person. You probably will get less of the Squid voice. You probably get a little bit more of me in my natural voice as I discuss some very serious topics. Potentially separate serious topics to some people, probably more serious to me because I'm actively involved in litigation. The call-in number for the show is 319-527-6090. Again, that number is 319-527-6090. And what I'm going to do today is have open discussion or open mic or what have you. And this thing keeps popping in and out on my whatever this thing is called. On my my page. Is kind of irritating. I'm new to this YouTube live stuff. You know, I've done a couple of reels on some of these other platforms, and for those who may know, you can follow me on what's it called, TikTok. You can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me, of course, here on YouTube and several other platforms as well. And we delve into quite a few different types of discussions. I'm giving people a chance to hop on in here. I'm going to get in and get out early today because I also am going to file a motion for reconsideration because the second DCA did what's called a PCA, a Per Curran Affirming of the lower court's decision. They didn't give me an order, written order, so I kind of feel okay about that. But I'm going to go ahead and make sure I file because today would be my 10th day for rehearing. I think I have 15 days for reconsideration, but I'm going to file it nonetheless. And I'm going to come back and file into the circuit court a motion to dismiss for lack of subject matter jurisdiction. People who, if you're on the Zoom and you can hear me in the Zoom, what I'll tell you is that the easiest way to get through before and I was sharing my screen, so I'll share my screen again. But the easiest way to get through is to call 319-527-6090, and you can hear me simulcasted on Blog Talk Radio as we come in here. And as always, if you want to talk on the show, even though you call it 319-527-6090 number, you still have to press the number 1 so that I know you're ready to speak. I see one of our regular participants is available right now. And if he wants to speak, Will, if you're ready, press the number 1 so you can give everybody your introduction and who you are, how often you've helped people with credit repair, and give everybody and tell everybody you've been around for 20 some odd years and what have you. And here he is, true to form. Will, what's going on? Welcome to the Greg Dawes Show. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for having me on the show. This is William Kimba Crowley. A lot of people know me as Kimba because I come from I used to be affiliated with the WHO movement for over probably about 20 years. The WHO movement, for those of you who are in the know, is that the core group of the African People's Socialist Party, and the mass movement is the WHO movement. But I was a member of that for 20 years. I do say I was. I'm no longer a member. And I have graduated, or I guess you want to say gravitated towards a different mindset based on my practical application of the theory that we learned. Greg sent me an interesting piece last week about this gentleman who plays the piano, and then someone who read a book on, I guess, playing the piano. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but essentially he was saying that practical application, theory is one thing, practical application endorses or destroys that theory. So I would strongly tell people out there that are looking at theory, reading books and etc. And I read a lot of books, but I don't just read, I participate. Practical application. So always test your own theory. You can be your best and self-critic whenever you're getting involved in any type of endeavors in life. But nevertheless, I'm William Kimba Crowley. I have a credit restoration business. I know I kind of said that I was involved with the WHO movement, but I've been involved with a lot of different movements, not just the WHO movement. last 20 years, and I kind of got into this business during the movement back in the late 90s, and we started helping people with their credit. Then I kind of went into taxes and then to the UCC and discharging of debt. So I know a lot of aspects of the credit industry and the financial industry, and I help people go above and beyond just the credit industry. So we show people not only how to remove negative information from their credit report, but we help them to understand how debt really works, and specifically the Uniform Commercial Code negotiable instrument section, if you want to understand what debts are you really liable for. So, for instance, on your credit report, there's charge-off account. I tell people never, ever pay a charged-off account, but never ignore the collector. What happens there is the original creditor charges the debt off, then the collector when the original creditor charges off, let me digress here. When the original creditor charges the debt off, it releases all parties of any financial obligations to their debt. So you no longer owe the original creditor because they charged it off after numerous attempts on trying to contact you regarding the debt. So they have insurance on these accounts. They write it off. Then the collectors buy the debt, and they try to entice you into paying the debt through what they call send out a collection letter, or they use threatening calls and things of that nature. The real problem in this whole culprit is the consumer, because the consumer keeps falling for this nonsense. And that's the only person I really blame is the consumer. Okay, I don't have no mercy on the consumer if you're going to go out there and play in the world of money and not know the game. Okay, the collectors send you a letter, and they give you an option whether you want to pay the debt or dispute the validity thereof. I tell people to exercise the latter option of disputing the validity thereof, because that's why they're putting that in there, because they can't just demand the debt. They know that you really don't owe the debt either. So that's why they have to give you an option when they send that documentation out that you can either dispute the validity thereof or pay the debt. If you want to know more about my services, look at my website. That's nationalcreditrestored.com, nationalcreditrestored.com, and my phone number, which has been the same since 1998 when I started this business, and that is 727-798-3092, 727-798-3092. Now I don't have privy or access to this call, so I don't know who's on, but I've invited some guests on tonight. Hopefully they on. And I have an insurance guy. If Jay Herring is on, I'd like for him to introduce himself sometime throughout the call and let people know what he's doing through his approach with the insurance, and specifically the Black community, on how we can deal with some of the financial issues in our community just through insurance alone.
Exactly, and I'm glad he's there. And tell him if he wants to, if they want to contact me, those who have the number, we'll give them my actual cell phone number, which is not a secret. 813-570-9617. You can text me. I see people in the chat room. I mean, on the screen. So I'm looking at one screen where I'm actually showing people are just seeing a smaller version of me on the YouTube live, as well as my screen. So if you have questions or things that you want me to discuss, you can call 319-527-6090. I can discuss it here. I can open up and show you, because this is about, and this is actually against everything that Will stands for, is me giving away information. But I have my eyes on a much bigger prize later on. But I think that part of I have a slight responsibility to the community to try to give people the same opportunities to learn information based upon somebody's experience, the same way Will gave it to me almost 15 years ago when I was going to hop out there almost crazily. It might be not 15, about 10 years ago. Almost crazily, just running behind what I was hearing people say. And Will, without even knowing me very well, pulled me to the side. He said, listen, man, if you want any of this information, here it is. This is what goes on. I've been through this. What did you used to call people, Will, the Johnny come latelys or whatever?
Yeah, I had my phone muted. Yeah. I call it Johnny come lately, because that's what happens in our community. We get people find out about something and they think that they're the only ones that ever knew about this, and then we come on like we're the ultimate expert, and that we have the only solution, and that's total nonsense. The stuff that I've been doing, hardly no Black folks were even around when I was doing it in the late 90s, early 2000s. and that wasn't that long ago. But weren't a lot of black folks weren't even involved in it. Now, in the last 10 years or 7 or 8 years, I guess everybody's surfaced now, and they claim that they're the experts and they have the end-all plan.
Or a new way of doing the old thing.
No
Will, don't forget, Will, the new way of doing something that was done a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
That's the part that I think really aggravates me the most, is people who are coming in with, well, do you know about this? No, I don't, but I do know one thing. If somebody's done something, there's no problem with showing you, because even if they show you, it doesn't mean you know how they did it. But I think that we get a lot farther by being transparent. Wins, losses, ties, draws, whatever you want to call them. Again, I'm extremely frustrated by what happened with me on May the 9th. And I appreciate the brother Mythical for coming and supporting me, as well as Life. And I believe another brother from the Uhuru movement. I'm not a member, present, past, but I support anybody who believes in standing up for the rights that are so secured, at least in theory, by the Constitution of the United States. I'm speaking also as a veteran of the United States military. I had and I thank you, Will, for introducing me to Ellsworth, or Tony Williams, for Veterans Counseling Veterans. I went out today to the 100-year commemoration of the Black veterans, or actually it's called the Negro Veterans Cemetery here in Tampa, Florida, which I knew nothing about. There's some 800 veterans, Black veterans, who served this country in conflict, to include World War I, II. They say maybe some that might have been there from the Civil War, who are buried there. Many have unmarked graves, which is an absolute travesty. It was sold recently, and then the city bought it back for, I believe it was like $100,000, Will. But I really appreciate you for introducing me to the gentleman who, Tony, who came on last week and told me about it. So I showed up there. There's a great turnout, considering that it was Tuesday at 11 o'clock a.m., the day after Memorial Day. And actually happened to see the mayor and some other distinguished guests, some local politicians and what have you. And one of the things that even she said is we have to be willing to participate in the process. I know a lot of people may have a negative view of voting. I'm an advocate for voting because people die so that I would vote. Even if I go in there just to vote for me, I'm going to make sure I show up. And also because I do have a greater understanding of how the political system in theory works, and until somebody shows me that it doesn't work that way, that you only can affect change by participating and being the change that you wish to affect. Now, if you're on the Zoom, you probably can't hear me. I'm not even sure if you can hear me on the Zoom because I'm not, the Zoom mic isn't open, I don't believe. But if you want to listen, again, call the show 319-527-6090. If you want to send me a message on Zoom, I will see that. If there's something that you may want me to show you on my screen or a situation you may want to go over, I'm more than willing to do that because each one teach one. Your favorite thing from the Hosea 4 and 6 is what, Will? I don't know if he's there.
My people are destroyed by the lack of knowledge. That was from the Esteem, because there was a split in the movement. So that was from the Esteem movement that focused on knowledge as opposed to faith. Paul is the one that corrupted the religion of Christianity with that whole idea of faith. So that was the Esteem movement that brought that knowledge, the knowledge aspect into play. So my people are destroyed by the lack of knowledge, and I agree with that 100%.
And I just put the number into the chat for the call-in show. Make sure you press the number 1 if you want to speak. And it says, why? Because you reject knowledge, he shall also reject thee. And again, what I've learned, is, in particular over the last couple of weeks, a lot more, actually more than the last couple of weeks, is you can waive affirmative defenses and potentially claims by playing around and doing things that are outside of what is understood to be law. I don't want, because otherwise we will spiral out into some discussions that's not going to benefit anybody, particularly people who may be under a deadline for getting some things done. So I do this quite often. And I have several cases going on now. In fact, we can go into Pacer and you can see where I am. I'm still.
Hey, Greg.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Can you see the queue? Because there's people telling me that they got their hands up. I didn't know if you said you couldn't see it or something.
Well, I see everybody in the queue. I see one hand up. I'm going to come to him. I think that's Bay. I see you.
Okay.
1018. I see you. And I'm going to come to you.
Okay, sir.
And in fact, if it maybe it's pressing because he did reach out to Will. Mr. Bay, how you doing? Islam. And hey, by the way, can anybody who's watching me on YouTube see me? Everybody can see me, correct?
Yeah. I'm going to go to YouTube right now, Greg, and check it out just a minute. Let me just hear what Regina say. I'm gonna pop it in just a minute. Okay.
Yes, sir. You're on, Mr. Bay.
Yes, thank you for having me on the show. For the viewing audience, I am Razeen Amaru Solomon Bay, the Wazir al-Rais, also known as Prime Minister of EO, Ile, Amaru, a new Andalusian state republic, based in the Florida territory, in this land known as Morocco, Al-Maghreb al-Aqsa, which most people call America or North America today. I do a lot of community service at the Mosque in NAPSC as well. This summer we have a summer youth program for Black youth ages 9 to 15. We're going to talk about conflict resolution, peer pressure, knowledge of self, and the event starts June the 6th, and it'll be held on Tuesdays and Thursdays up until July 27th from 11 to 1. So it's free admission for anybody who has youth around the Tampa Bay area. You come in. Also, we have a pre-Juneteenth event. We'll be showing a documentary on a Black Wall Street town in Georgia named Oscarville. This town was a prominent Black town. They had their own economy, and the Ku Klux Klan essentially wiped them out, pushed them out of the town, and built a lake over the town. And so now the lake is haunted. A lot of people have, drowned there and things of that nature. And so we're gonna expound on those points and shed light on the old town known as Oscarville. The event is June the 10th at 5:30 p.m. and we hope to see you there. It's free admission. So please, if you have the time, just stop by and come chat with us. We'll have a panel discussion afterwards. So again, thank you for having me on the show, Mr. Doss, and I hope to see you there.
Did you say the address? I didn't get it.
Oh, pardon me. The address is 905 East Skagway Avenue, Skagway. So 905 East Skagway Avenue, Tampa, Florida, off the corner of Nebraska and Bush.
By the way, are you going to have that event simulcast or broadcast either through Zoom or not Zoom? Well, actually, any platform. Are you going to be on any other platforms, or is it only viewable live?
So we can actually set up a YouTube live from the Masjid Anasa YouTube page, as well as a Facebook live through the Masjid Anasa Facebook page as well. So we'll have that, for the viewing audience that can't make it, we'll have that available as well.
Hold on 1 second. Bear with me. Let me go and quiet.
Am I hearing something? Okay. I don't know if that's Will or Babe. Okay, I appreciate it. Is that all that you had for us? Other than is that, or did you have a question, Mr. Bay?
No questions at this time.
Hey, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for dropping by. Anybody else, particularly if you're involved in community activism or what have you, make sure you reach out to us. We're always about doing things that help the people. So I see more and more hopping into the chat room. And also, I didn't even realize until I just looked at there that Cerebral Thoughts has popped in here. So let me go ahead and give him an opportunity to say what's going on. CT, what's going on? Welcome to the show. I'm sorry, I was looking around.
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, you know how we do it here. day in, day out. I don't know if you want to promote what you do in your spare time when you're not helping me, whether it's with studying or just giving some insight. You can tell everybody what you do, but I always appreciate you for showing up these Tuesday and Thursday nights.
Oh yeah, well mainly I'm just a student of your laws, the laws, whether they be universal or statute or case law, just a student, student of life, studying, Also, I do a little music here and there, as far as making tracks and whatnot, or a little bit of engineering and whatnot. And for the most part, just a regular average person,
Whatever, man. The cat's modest. you shouldn't be so modest.
Now, hey, Greg, is this the guy? Is this the guy you doing the radio show with?
Yeah,
the music show or whatever.
Well, not the.
When is that going to start?
Oh, that's gonna. I forgot about that, and I'd be remiss. Heavy probably should come and talk to us, since now we have no basketball going on. But that's WEDZ Radio. We should be launching, I believe, on July 1st is when everything should be up and going. We have a lot of the stuff done. I'm going to ask him to call in and give a plug to the show. But or to what we're going to be doing. We have sponsorships. You can buy the sponsorships. He'll probably go over that. I'm going to have him call in and say, I'm going to send him this message. I'm going to tell you, your son texted me. I told him I wasn't going to do a show. And then I was told, just do something. I said, okay, I'm going to pop one in here. So I kind of threw this together because I was going to work on some of these briefs that I have deadlines for, so I can get them out tonight. And so I didn't really set up a whole lot. That's why I decided we'll just do an open discussion, an open forum. So if there's anything anybody wants to ask me about, and I'll give you the best answer that I can. But I never stop fighting. In fact, I don't know how. So let's go to the phone line. I have another person that's calling in. Hold on one second, Will. Eric, last four is 8063. How may I help you? Welcome to the Greg Dawg Show.
GD, what's the word, Big Mockingbird? Galactic Rising, my brother. How you doing?
I'm all right. What's going on?
Man, they say you Greg Dawg with the legal hot sauce.
Go ahead, Greg. Respond. I'm waiting.
I'm waiting for him to get to the point, but let's go. I'm sending this message out to D also, and you can tell him what you managed to do as well within your, because he's done. In fact, Will, the two of you all probably need to meet, because he was once a student. I don't know how many people have followed me and for how long. Remember Brother Sharif? He was a student of, he came up under Sharif's philosophy, and Will often looks for people who sue these, what do you call them, consumer reporting agencies or whatever, or with these collection agencies who come after people. Will can get things erased from your credit report. And this gentleman on here actually has had some success in fighting them. I don't know if he wants to promote it as what his business is, but he's had success. And telling people what you've done, because that's what this show is about, saying, hey, listen, doesn't mean I'm always successful, but you always fight, and you can't win a fight unless you're willing to throw hands. So tell everybody what you managed to do.
Oh, man, I definitely appreciate that. I just want to say that GDZ, keep it greasy. You know what I'm talking about. We're going to make it legal easy. Man, here we go. Sometimes I go into an alternative state of mind. I like to bring some humor into the context. GD don't be laughing all the time, but he will laugh. You just got to catch him when he's not in this serious mood. So he laughs on the inside.
Exactly.
Come on, look, there it is. Look, there it is. I see it all in his face. I want to say this, going into the with GB Express, our brother has had some great success in the consumer realm, consumer protection laws, and it is something that, we really all should be aware of it, and all should be utilizing and being specific, going after our popular right of action. And that's another form or your right for compensation if you can bring your claim correct. And definitely you got to understand the pleading standard and the importance of getting past or meeting with that standard of what they define as plausibility. To keep it simple, because, my gears are starting to shift into the other mind. I just want to say that everyone wants to stand up for something, stand up for their rights. But what I come to understand, and I think GD will echo this, there's all these theories and philosophies, and as GD said, mythical remedies. You had me laughing when you said that.
Hey man, listen, it is what it is. It is what it is. It some of the stuff that I've heard people come tell me about that supposedly works, it does not work. And if it works, make me a believer. Just prove me wrong, like the show I used to do years ago with Sean 2B McDowell. Show me, because you've had something recently where you've heard how the judges come back. This notion that you're not going to get resistance, and as much as I would like to see Will get his ass whipped, the one thing I appreciate him for is telling me, Greg, if you think you're not going to get resistance, I forgot how he said it, I'm paraphrasing it. He essentially told me you're out of your mind. And I've been doing this now since you know me, Will, every year, and even USG every year, and Colin as well. I've had some kind of issue within the court system. And I don't know of any issue or thing that may have popped up that I was able to win without throwing hands. Does anybody disagree who's followed me for this long? I mean, I faced jail time and prison time. Have you ever known these people who've never been honorable in their entire existence to not fight against somebody who walks in that courtroom, particularly if you're not an attorney or a bar member, and just let you win? That's Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck immature for you to think that it can happen that easily.
I agree. And you know what? That's something that, in time, others will come to echo the ringing of that bell inside of their awareness as well. The sad part is, GD as well, and any others on the call, is that, usually there are going to be a lot of people who either going to be scammed, economically hurt, and that will manifest physically in your life like you've never seen. And it's one thing to think you're going to force someone to do something, with paperwork that, again, where in the law does it back or guarantee, again, your private right or action to bring it?
Right.
And my thing is, I'm not leaving nothing on the table. So my thing is, a lot of us are leaving. It's something. I'm gonna finish my thought. We're leaving actual remedy and relief on the table. We're leaving that.
Right.
You're leaving actual economic compensation for the violations, whether statutory or otherwise. And my thing is, we got to be clear when it comes to understanding in black and white where your remedy is at and how to go after it. If not, you waste a lot of time in what sounds good and even sometimes feels good, but it won't equate into actual currency or energy or Federal Reserve notes accumulated in your hand or your pocket, so you can buy that some water or some vegetables or some fruits or some cereal or take your family or your people out, whatever it may be you want to do. You won't have that access. Because again,
hold on, SG. Hold on. Maintain your thought, because I wanted to step in here and say this. That stuff only sounds good. A lot of this stuff that we hear out here regurgitated or spit around through social media and everywhere else, it only sounds good to those who are uninformed. If you know how this thing works, that stuff doesn't even sound good. It sounds foolish. So I just wanted to say that part. To the uninformed, it may sound slick and cool, but especially if you're going to walk into that federal court, that's a whole nother monster. And I can show you how much more difficult that process is than what seems to be getting out here splattered along the social media. But go ahead and continue your thoughts, SG. I apologize, bro.
No, it's all good. And what you're saying is, you're echoing definitely another fact from that, you're echoing a fact. How can I say? You're echoing a fact that is real on its face, or a face value of a fact in regards to, what sounds good and what it actually is good and what one should be doing. And again, the law is black and white, and I've come to learn over the years, the more I, make the time. That's the other thing I've realized over the years is you have to make the time to understand, to be able to articulate how does this thing work when it comes to my private right of action. And I'm always champion that, because that's your get back. So you can't go in there, chasing any and every law that doesn't give you a private right of action. It may only be for regulatory enforcement or law enforcement. If it isn't a regulatory or law enforcement agency law that has the action to enforce, you have no private right of action.
And sometimes your only relief is through injunctive relief or some sort of declaratory judgment as to an issue. In any statute or any code that's written, somewhere you're going to see language that's going to be to the effect of the legislative intent. The reason, and for those who don't understand, I go to the Constitution as the foundation, it's kind of like I used to say back in the day, giving the ball back to Jordan. You want the game's on the line, give the ball back to Jordan, your answer is going to be there, win, lose, or draw. But everything that's written, federal codes, United States statutes, which is USC, by the way, U.S. Code is United States statute, the Code of Fair Regulations, anything that is written was written by virtue of the power of the Constitution, because it delegates certain powers to the legislative branches of government. That's your Senate and your House of Representatives on the federal side, and on the state side, your Senate and your House of Representatives as well. So your state statutes are written by the people that you elect or choose not to involve with the election process, and the same thing goes through at the federal level. And one thing I wanted to make sure I'm clear about, because I had somebody say something about the president. The president did this. The president of the United States power is probably less than the power of the person who is your governor, because he has less of a direct impact on your day-to-day existence. Your governor, your city, county commissioners, your mayors, because they control the police, the policing forces, or what have you. Those are the people that you don't pay as much attention to, but those are the people who actually affect your life every day. In fact, those are the people whose doors you can go knock on. Most government officials have an open door policy, and actually you can't just open door policy to the president because he's insulated a little bit differently. But most of your city, county, state officials, you have access to. And if you want to set up some kind of way I can teach you all how to go and access them, it's really not that difficult. It's more about, didn't you say something before? I don't know if it was you or Will SG that said something about you have to put in the time. You gotta dedicate the time to learn this stuff. It's not going to fall out the sky, and you're not going to learn a whole lot reading books or listening to other people talk about things. You're going to get the best experience by sticking your head. It's kind of like making tackles. You stand by the pile, you ain't gonna tackle nobody. In fact, you ain't gonna play. You got to be willing to go ahead and put your head into the fray in order to be good. But go ahead and continue your thought, SG. And I got another caller on the line.
Oh, most definitely. And I do my best to kind of condense my thoughts, and it's always, like you say, in speaking, to try to make things as plain and simple. But we both understand to know that when we're dealing with the legal or the realm of law, it gets very complex. And these issues, you can lose on a technicality, you can win on a technicality. That balancing of the scale shifts back and forth quite intensely, or even aggressively. Some say even violently, based on the circumstance of the situation.
Could be, yeah.
And most definitely. And that's the other thing I realized. A lot of this, as you know, DD and others, it really takes taking time to expound on the definitions, the terms, also understanding the rules of civil procedure, the rules of evidence, and really understanding case law, but how it all comes together based on, you know, the pleading stage in which one is in. And even, you know, me humbly, you know, speaking and always from a balanced place, the language is something, you know, because even understanding that, you got to be able to demonstrate. You know, you got to demonstrate, because there's some great readers out there. You got some people, they can read well, they can articulate well, but the demonstration of it takes you to a whole other dimension. You know, because I realize it doesn't take much, and I'm pretty sure GD would agree, to go outside of the four corners of that complaint, you know, and we get more into our emotions and feelings. And again, being what is labeled or defined as pro se or self-represented litigant or party, of course, you're going to have that. But even that, you have to tailor and work on constant so that you don't emotionally unravel and go beyond the four corners of the complaint. And the next thing you know, the real merits of the case are no longer even being discussed or even adjudicated on. It's now your emotions and your feelings. And then, you know, they're ready to call the bailiff and the sheriff and whoever else to come get you, the marshal. You know, and again, I mean this from a balanced place. You know, we really got to be careful, concise, but be willing to learn from these lessons and to stay the course. And again, as you know, this is like climbing Mount Everest. You know, you really got to take it step by step and be willing to go up that hill or that mountain, you know, and be willing to interface with things you never saw or felt or dealt with. But ultimately, you will come to some understanding or some understanding. And one thing I can say in conclusion is that, you know, you don't have to know all of it. You just got to know enough of it. Or more importantly, you got to have that black and white speak accordingly to what you do know and what you can stand on. And from there, you'll be surprised. You know, it doesn't take a lot. It's just enough of, you got to box them in as they box you in. And I realized that if you can box them in and cover the top, and there's no way to burrow through it, 9 times out of 10, well, I'm going to say 10 out of 10 at that point. 10 out of 10, you're going to get some form of relief or remedy or settlement. And, you know, again, that's a whole nother creative issue when it comes to settling. Should you take, you know, is it enough? Is it not enough? Is it fair? Is it reasonable? Is it not? You know, there's a lot of games that are played. You know, again, me speaking on my own experiences from I've dealt with attorneys from my own experience. A lot of games that are played, you know, with regard to settlement, with regard to the rules. Like, they don't mind bending and breaking the rules because the level in which they're held accountable, it takes a certain amount of how can I say this? It takes a certain amount of evidence or articulation to that evidence in black and white to be able to hold, let's just say, this particular attorney accountable, or if you feel like you want to file a claim, not file a claim, you feel like you want to file a complaint. If you want to file a complaint against his bar license, no, these are things that can be done, but that's the process. And you got to bring it. If you don't bring it correctly, you know, that will be denied or dismissed, or that complaint will stick. And, you know, and bringing it definitely to an end, you know, I just want to say that it's a lot to be learned, you know, because again, you know, they throw pennies out there, literally pennies on a dollar to settle with you if they can do it. Because remember, they're arguing in their client's best interest, and that interest is to save time and currency that their client has to pay, while extracting as much time and energy out of you, and then they're extracting, you know, those billable hours or that hourly rate. And I come to understand on the federal level, them attorneys are making at a minimum $100 to $600 an hour, and that's based on, you know,
that would be a low number. But hold on, SG, and that would be a low number. I tried to count the pockets, but they do get paid. Everybody, most attorneys that I know or deal with, they actually start around $350 an hour. So anyway, I was asked earlier, and people have been asking me about when is the launch of the WEDZ radio station, and the gentleman who is the brain trust behind WEDZ radio, as well as the Chop Shop show, and a good friend of mine is on, even though nobody comes to watch him, Otis. Heavy, tell everybody not only about when we're going to launch, but about how to contact you for sponsorship packages. What's going on, man?
Okay, what's happening? First of all, Dolph is Red Dolph is always he's too kind. That's my brother, so I mean he's that's another conversation. But I want to thank y'all for inquiring about WEDZ. We do it easy. We bringing back old school music, a lot of 70s, 80s, 90s, a little bit of early 2000s. Just bringing that old, good feel good music back, where music meant something, stood for something. You knew the words. A song could take you back to a place. And I think that's what we got to get back to for our community, is just having that music to uplift you, empower you, and make you feel good about what you're doing in life. So you can reach out. My name is Daryl Newton on Facebook, DARYL NEWTON. Just inbox me and ask me to send you the link. We're still uploading music right now. We probably got about, say, 700 songs on there. But we got a lot of good stuff coming. So July 1st is our launch date. So we actually have the app. We're getting it completed for Apple. The Android app is available, but I'm still waiting on Apple. So once we get that completed, we'll be ready to go ahead and move forward. So anybody with questions, comments, feel free to give them to me now if you can.
Well, that ain't gonna happen, but they have your information.
Okay.
So they can contact you. And by the way, you could always attempt to contact me also at the GDNAPSC SHOW GDNAPSC show at Gmail, or you can always contact me, of course, through GregDoss.com until this thing ports over and becomes GDNAPSC.com. But you can contact me. Everybody knows I don't hide. Area code 813-570-9617, 813-570-9617. Any questions that you may have regarding how we do it easy on the radio, as well as Chop Shop, which we come back next Monday at 6:30, right, Heavy?
That'll be correct. We got Jason Glenn coming on. We highlighting father and sons for the month of June. So we got Jason Glenn, who's over in Empowered Minds. They do a lot of good things in the community. And his younger son, Jason Jr., is a upcoming sophomore at Florida A&M. He has a page going right now where he follows the athletic teams and does a lot of reporting with them. So should be a good show to have him come on and just get back to what we enjoy doing, fellowshipping, and most important, trying to make a difference.
Hey, absolutely. I appreciate you for stopping by, and we'll see you in a couple of days.
No doubt. Look forward to it. Give me a call when you get off.
All right. Appreciate you, D.
Thanks a lot, people. All right.
No doubt. So here we go, people. 319-527-6090, 319-527-6090. Welcome to the... I just brought somebody. Is that you, Savion? I think I might have just brought... What you call back? Let me try this again. Savion, can you hear me?
Yeah, hello?
Yes, sir. What's going on?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so, I think we kind of left that topic, but I was just wondering, is it Congress who creates the laws? Who creates these laws, and how are they able to create these new laws, and what is the process to create these new laws?
And now I know who your dad is. Yes, Congress creates law. Absolutely. Now, there's a process. Congress, committee, they get together, talk about what they want to pass. It's a law, something is presented, a particular bill or an act of legislation is presented. It goes into committee. From the committee, they vote on whether or not the law is going to come out of the committee to make the changes to the law, what have you. From there, it comes back out, and then it's voted on. And I'm giving you the condensed version. It's voted on by Congress. It goes from, if it passes the Congress, goes from the Congress to the Senate. The Senate passes it, goes to the president. He can sign it. The president does not make laws. Now, he does have the power to issue what's called an executive order. However, if he issues an executive order that's in contravention to the Constitution or some other well-established law, that order can either, one, be overridden by Congress, or the Supreme Court can strike it down. Even Congress can't really pass laws that are in contravention to the Constitution.
Hey,
So,
Greg,
yes, sir.
that's on a federal level, and what Greg and us are trying to emphasize to people that on the local level, that's where more of the power lies. You want to say something on that, Greg? Or
well, the process is exactly the same, though. It's exactly the same process. You're just dealing with a different branch of your own government.
Yeah, but right. Most people just focus on the federal level, though, and they don't.
Well, they focus on the president. They focus on the president. Will, let's just say what it is. They focus on the president, not understanding his power is so very limited. He's more of a figurehead, really. Your senators who have 6-year terms, your people in the House of Representatives that have terms every 2 years, those are the ones who make things happen. Those are the ones that you should be focused on, particularly your Senate, because that's where your judges, your federal judges, get confirmed. So when people are crying about why won't the president do something about police brutality, he doesn't have the power. That's why. But who does? Well, what it will just say, your local politicians do. Your governor definitely does. And when I say local, not just your city and county. Your city and county as far as policy, but as far as the law, just like I told people in Florida, Florida has a way to pierce qualified immunity. You have to show malice. And that's 768.289A, which is also the notice you want to give. Well, actually 768.28. But the 9A is where the malice and the qualified immunity part comes in. But you have to want to be involved. Nobody is going to look out for you because it's going to make them feel good. It just doesn't work that way. And sitting around complaining and wanting somebody to do something for you or saying you're not going to vote unless they do something is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard anybody say. Well, I'm not going to do this until you do this. Oh, shit, they're going to do it anyway. The people who are against you categorically don't want you voting. They don't want you participating. And anybody out here who tells you that you're going to get something without participating in the process, you might want to look at them a little cross-eyed, bro. You never. What's Tony saying? Because he's not on tonight, Will, about you waving a flag, waving paper or something like that.
Yeah, you never seen a revolution or a change happen. He just waving paperwork. Active participation, nor is.
Yeah, you're not going to get. In other words, you're not going to get something for nothing. What was it? Billy Preston, nothing from nothing leaves nothing. So as long as you keep doing nothing, expect to get nothing. Period. 319-527-6090 if you want to. And by the way, Savion, did I answer your question or did you have another question? I think he dropped off on me.
No, that's good.
Okay.
That's good.
No problem. Anything else anybody wants to know? And I'm going to tell you something. I'm a believer in public education. I really am. And it sounds probably funny coming from me. I'm the product of public education. But more importantly than what I got from the quote unquote education system is the demands that were placed upon me by my parents. And this is something that Will is about. Stop sending your kids to institutions of learning as if the person there owes your child more than you owe your child. Now, I'm a firm believer, big dummies create little dummies. So if you want to change it, you have to be a part of that process. Now, do the schools have responsibilities? Absolutely. But if you send them there with a good product, and there's an expectation, and the expectation permeated most of the people there, you would get better outcomes. We did better as a community when we weren't necessarily integrated. But I think more so than the integration, which I think me and Will may disagree, I don't think it was the integration that hurt us as much as the breakup of the nuclear family and the shattering of social standards or community standards. Our community standards at one time, Will, were very, very high, correct? You couldn't just go to school and act a fool. Certain things just were not going to be tolerated.
You don't have to believe us. Yeah.
Go ahead.
You don't have to even believe us. I mean, I went back. I just want to say this, Greg. So go back and talk to some of these people over 60, over 70, rather over 70, because I went and talked to a lot of them just from my hometown. And they said that listen, we had a lot more of a principled behavior before we were integrated. I'm not saying that integration killed us, but we let it kill us, if anything. But we were definitely more united and more successful from an integrated standpoint. We let integration interfere with our progress when we shouldn't have.
And not your progress, your principle, and our principles, Will. And we let this interfere with our principles.
Yeah. And just talk, but I tell people, just go and talk to people over 75, 80. I mean, well, a lot of them aren't around, but if you get a chance to talk to them over 75, they'll be able to tell you, listen, things were different then. And we destroyed, I say now that we were the ones that destroyed our own advantages. We destroyed it.
Absolutely.
We didn't, yeah.
And really, what's really frustrating to me is the amount of vitriol that we have no problem sharing or exacting against people in our own community, but you have very limited vitriol toward the ones who actually are willing to stand on your throat. And candidly, that's on us. I don't like to use the C word that Will uses a lot, and not the one that Tucker Carlson is supposed to use. But I think fear is one thing. The word that Will uses means it's not just that you fear. That goes to who I think that word you use, Will, is more of a that's a character word. The fact that you don't want to go and face anybody because you just are either innately afraid of them, or you just know that stuff doesn't work. It's really that simple. And I'll stand by it, because everybody and anybody can sit here and talk about what they do and how they do it, or what they're willing to do. But until you go out there and you stick your head out there and let somebody with the power to hurt you get involved, you're really just running your mouth. You have anything on that right there, Will? And by the way, if you want to comment, press number 1. It's a harsh word, but I do kind of get it. But that's a word I want to believe in the people, and maybe that's what's wrong with me. I am very myopic when it comes to that. I think that people, if given the information, would be willing to come out and fight. But what I'm seeing more and more is they try to find a way to avoid the direct confrontation, and you're just not going to get it that way. And I'm going to tell you, anybody who tells you that some magical paperwork with some fairy dust on it is going to get you something, they're lying to you. They could give you that for free. 319. Go ahead.
Speaking of which, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Will.
Go ahead, Greg. Well, and speaking of which, now we got Razine on the phone, and I don't want Razine to think we're beating up on him. We just want to be direct. I want to be direct. I'm not sure what Greg wants to do. Greg.
Oh, I didn't even know he was on. I didn't know he was on the phone for that reason. I don't say names that way, but even though he's here to defend himself, I don't. Hey, whatever you want to do, you do. I'm the first one to tell you. But once you get there are severe consequences in some instances for doing certain things, and you don't want to get caught behind an unnecessary 8 ball because you're playing around with something because it feels a certain way. I'm going to say this right here, and even for the people out there on YouTube, because I'm pretty sure it may even pop up even later on, but I do mean this. I have a saying that you can't nigger your way through the system, because the system is nigger proof and niggas are the proof. All right? It just doesn't work that way.
That's the first time I heard you say that.
Well, normally I say it just is what it is. We're out here playing games with something that is very serious. Litigation is very serious. Trust me. I wish I had attorneys that would be willing to help me with my cases. I can show you what, in fact, today, for those who don't know, my cases, and I'm gonna go to the Zoom and share the screen. My federal case involves, it's not a secret, I sued several people to include a former judge, but I didn't sue the judge. I sued the individual who happens to have a job as a judge, but I sued him in his personal capacity. Today in SG, you'll find this funny. The attorney for the state, who I don't think should be representing him, asked me to grant them an extension of time from him answering, my request for interrogatories, my request for admissions, and my request for production. I say no problem, because they're waiting for the federal court to rule on their motions to dismiss, to which I filed motions in opposition. They didn't file a motion in response to my motion in opposition. I don't know what to think, but I did file a pretty voluminous, what do you call it? I filed a pretty voluminous, dang, I can't come to the word, a voluminous pleading. So I know the courts have a lot to go through, and what I'll do is, and as you look at my screen, and it's a little bit slow, everybody who's in the Zoom can now see my screen, and the Zoom link is in the YouTube chat room. My Zoom link is also on my Facebook page, but you can see it right there, big as day. This is where I am right now, and I'm 91 entries in, and I've been waiting since January for the court to rule. But you can come up here and see the case management is an approved case management scheduling order, which I'll click for you right here, big as day. No, let me go ahead and sign back in. I apologize. So give me a second, but you're watching me go through this whole process. And thank goodness nobody can see the password, but I wait a minute, I know better than that. Here we go. So here we go. And he's actually in here. And again, if you don't press the number 1, I won't know that you want to speak. And I appreciate everybody who happens to be here on this show. But SG, you're there, right? SG, that's you inside the that I just showed inside the Zoom call, correct?
It's me and Uncle Bubba.
So right there, as
he's on the wrong side of the team, but
you see right there. Are you looking at the screen? The Zoom screen? That's the case, man. Nothing about this is fake. Nothing about this is fake, correct? This looks familiar to you because you've been in the federal court, right?
Yes, sir. That is all factual and is all by the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. And
you see right there, the docket sheets, the information for, and we'll all know if you're watching the Zoom link, but anybody looking at the Zoom link, it's clear as day. And I see you 1669. So right here, and I think you had mentioned something about deadlines or something about missing certain things. Didn't you say something about that earlier, SG, about what you learned in your cases? Now, the people who are on the YouTube, yeah, you said you may miss something if you miss a rule. Now, those of you on the YouTube live, I haven't figured out how to do the. I don't know how to do the. I haven't figured out how to do the split screen, because I know there's a way I could do it where you can see me on YouTube live and I can make it so that you can see my Zoom. I'll get that figured out later on. But if you want, the Zoom link is inside of the. If you go to my YouTube live, the Zoom link is there. But these deadlines are serious deadlines. Okay, now if you may want to do some other stuff, then what you can do is you could probably petition the court after you ask the other party. And right there, you see where my final pretrial conference is? Tell everybody the date of my final pretrial conference, SG.
It's March 19th, 2024, time 1:45 p.m., and that's in front of Judge, is it Charlene Edwards?
Honeywell.
Honeywell.
Yeah.
Courtroom 13A.
And when is my trial? When does my trial term begin?
The trial term begins April 1st, 2024.
And how long they say this trial is supposed to last us?
The estimated length of trial is 7 to 10 days.
And this is for me being a pro se litigant. Self-represented, and there's a lot involved in this case. So I'm studying on the run, throwing hands, doing consults with attorneys, continue to reach out to other attorneys to take the case. But if they don't take the case, I have no choice but to do what? Put my time in there to learn this stuff. And I don't, just like what you said earlier today, SG, you don't want to play around with what could be something that's very detrimental to your case. And I worry about it every day, by the way. Reading up on the rules, knowing the rules. Say what you're going to say.
Oh, no, I apologize for cutting you off. I was going to say it's real because, like you say, every district or federal court has its local rules. And those local rules are defined for that particular area or district outside of the universal or national federal rules, which is uniform standard, for all districts.
Absolutely. So it's not a joke. And as you can see in my complaint, the first one, but it wasn't until I actually got permission to move forward on my complaint somewhere down here, and they did their motions for to dismiss, and I came right back and they gave an order. So all this other stuff that's come down here with these motions to dismiss, I came in and filed my motion in opposition, and I'm waiting for the court to rule on those motions to dismiss. But this is the complaint in its last form that we're waiting to see. And anybody who's doing it right now, who's on the Zoom, you can do the same thing. Go and look up the cases.
Can I add this, DD?
Yes.
DD, can I add this? Now, and as you know, there's a different, I like to say, momentum or specific positioning when you're the plaintiff versus the defendant. And when you're bringing a civil action versus a defending in, let's say, a criminal action.
Very different.
Right. And see, that's the sensitivity I would say that has to be understood, because when you're bringing a civil claim or civil action, ultimately you're going after, some form of monetary relief, unless you're going after declaratory injunctive, but you definitely want compensation.
Oh, yeah.
You're enforcing that private right of action.
Yeah, I definitely do. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And see, something I realized too is you got to throw feelers out there. You got to, from time to time, say, hey, and again, this is just, from my own experience, is plaintiff such and such, is defendant such and such interested in settling this matter? You'll be surprised. Now, remember, whoever the attorney, their client, that attorney has to bring whatever offer you state or make to their client.
Right.
By right, that's a rule and obligation. Now, they can say, our client isn't interested in settling, our client, rejects, your offer, but he has to or she has to, by right, take it to their client. And you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised how that could start or spark, maybe one party coming off the case, maybe another party jumping off. And sometimes it starts to fall like dominoes when they start to see other individuals saying, you know what, let me take this short scenic route versus the long route. I think I might hop off of this.
Well, there's always going to be a risk. What is it called? There's like a risk management aspect to anything that they do, no matter what, especially when it's a case involving money. And in this instance, I actually went through a trial where I was prosecuted. I won the trial, and I came back and almost let the case go. But then the spirit said, go back and fight it. And I filed almost at the last minute. But then I turned back around and amended the complaint, and this is the fourth one. But as you all can see, this is a 414 total page complaint with exhibits. And if you go back into and looking at this, everything that I've done in here, I went down. Let me go further down. I'll make it a little bit quicker. I attached exhibits that would help the reader of the complaint understand what I'm alluding to in my complaint. And I put all this together. And I'm not an expert. I don't profess to be one. I'm just an expert of what I've done. And I'm still learning. But I would gladly hand this over to somebody who could better negotiate. So anybody know Ben Crump or what's my man, Willie Gary, any of these high-level attorneys or anybody who has any knowledge or any familiarity with any state prosecutors or federal level. All this information is, and you've seen it all, SG. I didn't make up any of this. I just put it together.
Yeah, and that's a tall task, Sister. That it's one thing to put it together. Then you have to now take it through the stages of litigation, and that's where the other nuances.
That's where the nuance comes in.
Local rules or federal rules, because you got those guys that are they've gone to school and they've done maybe 6 to 8 years, and depends on how long it took for them to pass the state bar, but their state, I should say the bar exam, the state bar exam,
and then getting admitted to the federal courts, and then being able to get admitted into the federal courts, which is a tall task in and of itself, from what I've heard, because the federal courts are no nonsense, right? They're no nonsense.
What it's supposed to be, and
right, you're right.
When it comes to it's supposed to be with regards to the issue of controversy, but let alone the position of the party. But one thing I come to understand is that you have people who were former attorneys who are now judges,
right? Who
may have started out in the lower court, and now they're dealing with a federal court. Of course, all courts are lower to the Supreme Court, but from a point of reference of setting that lower court state to federal, a lower court from state to federal court. So and then you got again state appeals and federal appeals. But even with that, in my quick thought is I do the best I can to kind of top it. I was gonna say that you have the tendency, you got certain individuals who were representing various, let's just say, various clients from various types of cases. And again, whether it's a good old boys club or not, you got a mentality that is in there for those who, maybe they great granddaddy been doing this stuff. So they come to understand,
almost like legacy. There's legacy involved with a lot of this. There's reputation involved. There's, in some instances, things that we probably don't know that are involved. But at the end of the day, I go back to my earlier comment that Will said he had never heard before. I'll just clean it up and calibrate it and saying you can't go and BS your way through this stuff because it's BS proof. Okay? It's just not going to work. And I'm not saying it because I've had a hard time. I'm saying it because that's genuinely the way that this works. There's way too many resources into building this institution or the many institutions to let you just waltz in there and get away by throwing in some fancy paperwork or claiming you can say a few words. And anybody who's done it should be coming up and say, this is how I've done it. Here is the track record, the transcripts, and by the way, you're reading a transcript. I'm just going all the way down through the exhibits. And this is something that I'm putting in front of a court to read so I can at least give them the idea that I'm not only serious about this, but I can prove what I've alleged in my complaint and how we got here. Even though the complaint is about the malicious prosecution, but on the back end of the malicious prosecution is all the things that I claim happened. And by the way, you can see my order where they dismissed my my case for perjury. But this part was probably hard. The other part that was very difficult was standing in there knowing what was at stake, because I would still be gone to this day. Now, it's not as serious with
and you got a perjury charge dismissed.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that, DD? I apologize for cutting you off. But that's good. I mean, you got a perjury charge, an alleged perjury charge dismissed. That in itself, you know, that's a tall task. You know, not everyone can say they've actually had a charge on an alleged charge of that and got it dismissed. You know, that's something that definitely needs to be given attention to. And if you don't mind giving some context to, you know, to that, in whichever way you feel comfortable sharing.
Well, it is what it is. It's not like I didn't talk about it before, but 319-527-6090, 319-527-6090 on the Greg Dahl Show. We got about 17 minutes left of a show that I wasn't going to do, but it was not just it was a perjury charge. It was a perjury charge, and I go back. That was allegedly told to a City of Tampa police officer by a, at the time, sitting judge. I knew nothing about it until the perjury charge dropped in front of me. So you can imagine, in all honesty, in candor, I was extremely scared because I didn't understand what was going on. But I had an idea that I didn't do what they claimed I did. And I had to work through several judges in order to get the case dismissed. But if you look at the docket, you'll see several judges show up on the docket. Several judges get dismissed. I mean, who had to recuse, or we'll say disqualified. And even this case management conference, which was called by the judge at the time, he called it at a time when the case was under a stay because I had filed a writ of certiorari to the second DCA, or the Second District Court of Appeals, the same court I appeared in front of for my oral argument. But as you see on the screen, if you can, for the people so they don't think I made it up, read the first paragraph. SG.
On approximately, okay. Let me, I muted myself. Oh, I thought I was unmuted. All right, let me slow down. Slow your thoughts down. On February 9th, 2017, at approximately 1,145 hours, I was contacted by the Honorable Judge Greg Holder, who has a civil case in his courtroom regarding a pending bankruptcy hearing involving the suspect. That's quite interesting. Doss. Judge Holder related that the suspect, Doss, filed sworn document filings with the clerk of the court advising that he was indigent, did not own any real property, and had no source of income. Judge Holder, believing that a fraud was being committed, researched the Hillsborough County Property Appraiser's website and located real property owned by the suspect, Doss, and request that his fraud, perjury, be investigated by law enforcement.
They can get the rest of it later on. That in and of itself, it should be enough to startle anybody. And it took me a while to get this report, by the way. The report I don't think I got until like September or whatever it was. I can't remember when they actually gave me the report. Oh, it was printed in August. So, but by the way, back in February, I was still attempting to fight for property that I had lawfully acquired. What's interesting about it is bankruptcy cases, for those who don't know, this goes to you, Savion. Bankruptcy is not a state court issue. It's a federal court issue. And what's more interesting is the guy who,
that is correct.
The person that this the judge allegedly called, because I don't have any proof that the judge called him. And part of my discovery is based upon, hey, listen, give me the sworn statement that the judge called you. Because even if you wanted to investigate me, the judge has to swear that I committed some offense, or whoever the victim is, whoever made the statement that I did it. Plus, we all know judges shouldn't be investigating anything. It's not their function.
Oh man.
So it's going to be interesting. But again, I'm not just going up against this guy who did this in the city, who allowed their officer to do this, or my allegation is that they have a past custom and practice or a policy of doing these kind of things. I'm now going up against institutions, well-established institutions, because now you're talking about an entire jurisdiction being in question. Because if a judge is corrupted, everything associated with the judicial system in that area is potentially tainted.
You talking about you talking about fruit of the same poisonous tree?
Yeah, because the entire tree is now, to some great degree, infected. Because here's the other thing: everybody that I was in front of, every judge that I appeared before, who had an idea that this was going on, had a duty to protect me, because they have oaths to the Constitution. But there's also the responsibility that a court has for everybody that's in front of them. And also there's ethics, rules of ethics, and we have in Florida judicial canons and what have you. But somebody could have said, hey, this is not cool. Not, let's just keep pushing it forward until somebody, until he either goes to prison or whatever happens. And what's crazy is the number of people who would have been okay with me going to prison for something I did not do. So forget me. I'm not that selfish. What is the likelihood that this kind of situation, even if not involving perjury, something else, what's the likelihood that it happened before? In this particular jurisdiction, and involving these same cast of characters that were involved in this foolishness against me.
I mean, but think real quick side note, if you don't mind me jumping in, GD. Think about all the racial profiling and all the stats and quotas that have to be met in regards to tickets or fines, let alone arrests. So in my balanced opinion, it's nothing new, whether it's something local or on a national scale. If you look at the foundation, see, I'm always go to the foundation as best I understand it, or I can go look it up to read it when it comes to the root of how was this system created? Who created it? Who has gotten the most benefit of it? And how has it evolved over the years? And see, that's where, for me, it becomes not surprising when you have individuals who are in public positions of authority and who breach that authority or who abuse their authority and power. It's not surprising to that level, in my opinion, because
they're human. They are human. They're human too, though. But at the end of the day, they're still human. So whatever they have going on, they have going on. Not that I'm giving it as an excuse. I'm just saying they're human. They're people as well. And you just never know what's going on. To this day, only through discovery will I find out what's going on. Now, I have received some discovery. In fact, they gave a bunch of my, and part of my mug shot, they gave a bunch of my mug shots and everything else. So it's not like it's a secret. I've gone through all this stuff. But what they don't say is all these cases ended up without me being convicted. I've been arrested plenty of times. I'm not proud of it, but there was something inside of me that made me want to fight. And this is before I really learned how to fight. And there's people who knew me from my days doing other things. And it was just, and I don't know if they thought that, oh, here you go, the arrest inquiry. I don't know if they thought this right here would intimidate me, but at the end of the day, what I do know is I won. The driving out license cases, the check cases, they gave me the money back because the bank reversed out the money. And there's people who said I was always more interested in being defensive than offensive. I never filed claims for abusive process, malicious prosecution, none of that stuff before. That's me. All these times.
Man, there you go. Zoom in on that, my brother.
Yeah.
And you got this through Discovery.
Yeah, they gave this to me. All these right here.
Zoom in on that guy, man. Look. Man,
Even here.
That's
hey,
a hell of a. That's a hell of a TikTok thumbnail. You got some good thumbnails right there.
But these are the tactics that they use. Okay, here we go. Now let's get to the story behind it. I can't. It's all public record anyway, though, so I couldn't hide from it. Okay, this happened. So what? And all of this, guys, is related to my desire to fight child support. I was willing to stand in there and get these arrests, and on the other end of the arrest, I come back and get. I can show you that. I can show you. Well, actually, they didn't give me those. Let's see. Where do I have? No, I don't want the case information.
Well, GD, real quick. Some states, the mugshot becomes public record or it's free to access, but that's not in all states.
Well, what they're supposed to do, or they started doing, was once your case dismissed, they weren't supposed to show it anymore. I just, I don't give a damn. It's what it is. Dang it. Let me pull up some of these things here. I'm trying to find my.
Man, I'm about to put that Akon beat to one of your mugshots.
Hey, dude, it's there.
I'm messing with you. Good.
Shoot, man, listen. I would be. It would have been silly for me to think that they almost sounded like Denise Williams. It'd been silly for me to think that they weren't going to try some of these tactics. But this is also what comes from. This is what also comes from being involved in the system, and they know how to use these manipulative tactics. I'm not worried about it. It happened. Let's go to work. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the Department of Revenue. That's why I do have the passion to try to help people. Listen, bro, this thing with child support is not easy. There are a lot of things that are tied to you being abused by the Department of Revenue. Correct?
I agree. Correct.
Everyone, look at all those arrests that are some way tied to that right there. All those arrests are some kind of way are tied to child support. But what they won't show you is that. This case is closed. Oh, these are my closed cases. They don't show that.
Those abusive enforcement actions.
Right. They don't show that. They don't show people this when they go here. All these arrests and things are tied to this, but they don't show you that. You see that? They won't show that, right?
Yeah. It says file redacted. Look at that. File redacted, termination of child support services.
I think they redact them anyway because after so many years or something like that. I don't know because this is an old case. I think it's a 99 case. I don't care. But in 2015, after a lot of fighting, and by the way, I got my ass kicked for a lot of years, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, you got a docket history here, my brother. You got some dates. You got some. You going back some. Man, you talking about
It's a different case number. Different case number.
24 years.
Yeah, see the different case number. Same result.
Right. DOR.
See the case numbers are right there. Different case number. A lot of years get my ass kicked. See that? And you want to, and people want to see these.
Yeah, those nice letters, right? They get to acting like those don't exist.
Well,
they'd be like, "We never sent you that, Mr. Gomes."
Yeah, but you see that it says different number. And this is from the Department of Revenue. We told the Department of Motor Vehicles to reinstate your license. We're no longer enforcing the action. Same thing, different case, same kind of letter, different date, of course. Same case, same kind of situation, different case number, of course, and same results. That's what it looks like. And as you can tell, I didn't make it up because you could probably scan that barcode and probably something will come up. I don't know. don't even care. But my point is about being transparent. I've been through a lot that I would rather see y'all not go through. And also I've said it in other places. I got all this information after the age of 40. If you are on the YouTube live, you don't see this. You have to hit the Zoom link to see what I'm showing everybody. But notice there's a federal removal. You see this? I've gone through this stuff. And as you saw the date that you read it, when they remand it, it'll look like this. But the federal courts is going to give you an order telling you what's going on. You know, I filed temporary restraining orders, I believe. Yeah, see? And they, you know, I think they kicked it back down. But they kicked it down with instructions for them to reinstate the license without me paying it. But but I had to go in there and throw hands though, right, bro? And that's what I'm telling people. I'm not saying call me, because really don't be bothering me if you're not interested in doing real work. Because I don't have any of these mythical answers. And by the way, if you want to hear a case, anybody can hear something that sounds about like this. I think it will show up even on this. If I play it here, it'll probably come through the let's try and see how this works. And this is all right live while we're doing this show. And by the way, 319-527-6090. We're about to go into the overtime, which I wasn't going to do, but I know it'll take me about an hour to do a couple of cases. To do a couple of these briefs, I'm only doing motions for reconsideration. Let's see what we got going here.
Hey, and you know they say GD, those are highly disfavored.
Yeah, hold on a second.
All right.
Can y'all hear this?
Yeah, I can hear it.
All right, good afternoon.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would like to announce an old cross and
Your audio
on the
isn't
record
that clear,
at
though.
this time, Mr. Dawson's license is suspended for
Oh.
failure to pay child support, so he is on notice that his
The audio
license is
is not
currently
that clear.
It's not. Well, this right here is an audio of them
So
telling me that
where we
my
are, Mr.
license
Doss, I know you had
was,
motions that
well,
were
they
filed.
dismissed the case against me for driving without license.
At this point, they've announced that they're not going forward with the prosecution of this particular case. So
Hold
as
on.
far as my jurisdiction of the case is, Doss, I know you had
Oh,
motions
I can
that
hear
were
that.
filed.
I can hear
Dawson's
that.
license is suspended for Your Honor, at this time, the state would like to announce an old cross and put on the record that at this time, Mr. Dawson's license is suspended for failure to pay child support, so he is on notice that his license is currently suspended.
Okay. All right. So where we are, Mr. Doss, I know you had motions that were filed, and at this point, they've announced that they're not going forward with the prosecution of this particular case. So as far as my jurisdiction of the case is now terminated, so the case is in fact over with. All right.
Oh, okay. Relative to this issue, now my family's in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and I want to know, because she had contact information. I'm here. I'm not really happy about this.
Well, I don't have anything else I can tell you
I
about, because
understand
I don't have jurisdiction anymore.
I'll deal with this. And more importantly, if there's a notice that my license is supposedly suspended for not paying child support, which is not lawful, if you cannot show me the due process that would have allowed that to happen, tell me exactly who is responsible for doing such a thing so that I can deal with them directly.
Mr. Doss, here's the thing.
I understand.
No.
Now, I don't. If you all want that, y'all can get it, because I was a little bit miffed, and that's not me and my normal demeanor in a courtroom. But I was aggravated, and I've had several of these cases that were dismissed. I need to update. In fact, CT, we need to update the Dropbox, I think, because there's more cases than the ones that are in here. Not for driving out license, I don't think, but for the other kind of cases. There's a lot of audio that I don't have in here. But this is actually from my Dropbox. But you can hear how a case gets dismissed. This is another. In fact, this is a speeding ticket case, I believe. This one here was with CT's cousin.
Paul Milo II.
I forgot.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the officer has.
Yeah, it is.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Continue.
Yes.
No.
Observed the vehicle I was approaching me from behind. It was traveling southbound.
He's gonna-
15. Yes, sir. Okay, did this occur?
Objection.
Did this occur?
Well, hold on. What's the basis?
Objection.
What's your basis of your objection?
What proof?
What the reason?
Proof.
Proof.
I'm saying proof
All right.
of the
I'm gonna have
statement.
to sustain the state. Give me something else. Provide the document. You have the documentation.
Yes, sir, I do.
All right.
Well, wait a minute. Oh, objection is outside the scope of discovery because when I asked for it originally, it wasn't provided. So you can't enter it today.
Hold on. Did he request to see the radar
Your Honor,
documents?
I have not seen any requests that indicated that. Your Honor.
It's called discovery pursuant to Rule 3.220.
Hold on. And talk to me, sir.
No,
Talk to me.
Judge, it's evident that
Let me see your document.
Now he's gonna go through a little bit of this right here. Now,
we aren't being beyond this.
I wouldn't tell everybody to act always like I've acted, but
Did he
in my
Stop talking. Did he request discovery state?
He did request discovery.
Let me see what he said in his discovery request. You have a copy of it?
Your Honor, I do not. Your Honor, let me look in the. I'm not sure if it was requested.
and I made one. As you see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
Why we didn't provide them
10,
with the
10 appearances to get this case got
documentation
to get rid of this
regarding
case.
the radar?
Your Honor, because that wasn't challenged and the underlying issue was the driving with license suspended.
And if you're watching me on YouTube and I'm having these facial expressions,
there's a motion to suppress.
Tony said I tend to use facial expressions when I'm in court as well. I wouldn't suggest that, by the way.
Probably doesn't relate though to whether we. Oh, excuse me, sir. I'm gonna ask you. Wait.
Hey, and by the way, you know what we all know who the state attorney, what he looked like, right? They changed the state attorney.
Let me take a look at it.
Then I do detailed discovery requests. And if you happen to have these situations, which we hope you can avoid, because I didn't like going through this, but
I am specifically demanding all reports prepared for in connection with the case. Seems to kind of include that, huh? Goodness gracious. I know it's hard to figure it out with all these other things he's asking for, but for some reason he did ask for that.
Some reason, huh? Yeah.
Excuse me, Your Honor. Not get a drink of water real quick.
Well, you can go ahead and leave. I'm going to dismiss the charge.
And I'll ask for dismissal of the.
I'm dismissing the cases.
Have a great day.
All right.
We could do this for every case that I've ever had dismissed. I think it's kind of like overkill at this point. But anybody can get the information. It's out there. It's public record anyway. And so all those pictures, the numbers that came through, somewhere I think I have I'm in the wrong, I'm outside the wrong one. The check issue with the bank reversed out a cashier's check, and I ended up getting arrested behind checks. They gave the money back after I went through this BS. But back then I didn't have the body of knowledge that I have now. And again, if I could help people avoid what I've gone through, I would do that for people by just showing you what I've gone through. Let me see, miscellaneous documents. That may not be, the check is in here somewhere, and I'll show you all that through. Let me see something. We're in overtime now, so I don't think you can get in. But I had to go back and look at a lot of this stuff because I haven't been in this thing in a while. Because there it is. Can you see that? You can still see the check on the screen, right? SG, you can see the check. Oh, maybe he's dropped off as well.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
No, I'm still here. I'm still here. I had muted up. I can see it.
So there's a check by the state of Florida.
Yeah, I can see it.
And this check, when I got this check, I'm saying, well, dang, if I owe anybody any money, what do you think the state of Florida would have done with this check?
No, they'd have took it. You definitely wouldn't have been able to to go after those unclaimed funds, my brother. Yeah, they definitely would have took it from you.
Right. So I think I might have did something wrong. How do you come out of this? But yeah, oh, here's an order of no incarceration that came in on another case where they said, well, and if you get to this case right here, where it states that even if I'm found guilty, they can't incarcerate you. Because at the time that driving without license was, by the time the Constitution was adopted, the driving without license wasn't a crime, so it's not an incarceratable offense. Oh, by the way, here's the only time I believe that I had a letter of release where I didn't do anything. See that letter of release? I didn't have to fight at all. They just dismissed the case.
Right.
But we do. I see if he's still there. I don't know if he's still in. See, we got to do some updating. I need to update a lot of information inside this Dropbox for people. But hopefully everybody gets the general idea that things are not as easy as some people might want to make it seem. Oh, this would be kind of interesting too. This is some years ago. I did a public records request for the monies that are associated with the Department of Revenue. And what I learned is, as you can see here on the screen, the amount of money, look how much money the state of Florida gets to operate the child support enforcement program. This was then. This is just to operate the program. This has nothing to do with anything else. And by the way, as a general, a rhetorical question, where do you think most of the funds go to when it comes to running a program? What's the first cost for every program? Generally speaking, it's going to be salary, right?
Right. Hiring people, right.
So do you think they're going to do you think they're wanting to willfully just give this stuff up? You're talking about jobs and careers. And if you want the actual public records request, I can give you that too. Hey, CT, is that public records request inside of this Dropbox, or did I have it in another file? If you're still on. He might be gone or doing some other work, but I did the public records request.
I don't know where it's at.
Okay, but you can see on the screen where I asked for all this information involving these people, and they start to answer the questions, and they give me the codes, the federal regulations, everything that they use. Confidential information is exempt from disclosure under state and federal law. All this other foolishness. But look at that. Look at that number right there. Can you see that number, SG?
Yep, I can see it.
How much money did they get in the fiscal year of 18-19 to run that program?
Man, that's $191,963,945.00.
Do you think they're just going to let you have that or give up any pieces of that because you got some mystical, magical paperwork, bro? How many jobs?
Go ahead.
How many jobs are tied to that? How many careers are tied to that money?
I can only imagine. I'm gonna say into the thousands, probably into the thousands at a minimum. At a minimum, thousands. I mean, you probably approaching tens of thousands.
So they're gonna let you just walk. And this is just for the child support enforcement program. By the way, here's the grant letter. So the state block grant you talk about, that's it right there. And this is the notice. And within here, it tells you what provisions they have to meet. Now, there's a lot of work here, but once you do the reading, this stuff. And I want to say this without sounding overly truculent for those on YouTube who don't know me. I'm confident in what I know and what I've read, but when I give an answer, it comes from a lot of, and this is what CT told me a long time ago about And actually, he's not on now, but UB said, I give people a false sense of confidence because it's not that easy. No, it's not. The reason I can give an answer is because in many instances, I've already gone through it. But I can give you the answer and it'll tell you the answer to your question, but doesn't give you an idea of the depth of my information and how I got it. Is that a better way for me to say it, CT? CT, because he told me I used to set people up with these loaded guns because they thinking the paperwork is going to do is the remedy, and it's not the remedy. Is that right, CT? So anybody who's watching the screen, you can see that we've done a lot of work at GD NAPSC, but those are actual documents. You see that? And I have thousands of pages of public records request information.
That's a lot of power in that public records request.
And the interesting thing about it, the FOIA request does not have the amount of teeth, the same kind of teeth that the Chapter 119 request for Sunshine Act in Florida has. It's powerful, very, very powerful. And if anybody wants to get the information, looking like Ronnie, Rick, and Ralph, anybody wants to get the information, you can just contact me, and we can go through it. And we can.
Man, I thought that was Bobby Brown for a minute.
Hey, bro, it's easy. And by the way, here's the thing I want to send you all.
I'm messing with.
Hey, man, listen, it's real easy to get caught up when you look like us, and that's why I don't understand why you think of people who've never been honorable would be honorable. I didn't even know this until last week. Was it CT? I brought this up. I hadn't even noticed that they defaulted me. And it kind of made a little bit more sense as I started thinking about that oral argument, why they kept talking so much when I was trying to get in. Here's the interesting thing. The clerk never had the power to enter a default. And why would she not have the power to enter a default?
Well, let me say this, GD. Now, from what I saw, and going back to that hearing, remember, they're going on the premises and the basis that you were served.
Right.
And it shows it right there. Now, it shows it there in the clerk notes of entry, and the docket history is showing that you were served. So if you were served and they taking it from the auspice that, well, you didn't respond, so you deserve this motion for default. Right.
I get that, but I want to show you something. No, I'm glad because we're gonna get it because now we have a federal question issue. You see this right here?
Yeah, I see it. I mean, you're always showing things loud and clear. You know, my thing is always going to be when you're in front of the beast.
And that's why we're going back. That's why I'm going back, because the beast still has to follow the law. And until I get him there, and by the way, because it is a constitutional issue, I can go directly to the state Supreme Court. And because they PCA'd me, I can ask for certiorari to the United States Supreme Court, because the 4M language would supersede the state language. 4J, because Florida's law is drafted after the federal law, which means what? You have to follow the federal law. They knew that, so we'll get in there. We'll bang. I'm not worried about it. And you can always substitute Georgia for North Carolina in this one. A lot of the rejection is because they expect us to quit. I don't know how to quit. Now, if I get an order that articulates it, then I can accept it. Kind of like when we got the order from the federal court when they explained to people clearly that child support rises out of a state action. You can't go to the federal courts expecting some kind of the federal courts to operate as an appellate court. They don't do that. And generally speaking, by the way, there can probably be some exceptions. But if there's an issue of a federal right, then the federal court would have the ability to speak into it. And when it's interstate, that would be what?
You said what is interstate?
If it's intrastate, what is that? More than one state is involved. That may give the federal court jurisdiction because it takes the federal law to federal law determines how those actions are handled. So
okay, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this real quick. Now, even with interstate, there's still the new homes. There's still I'm gonna use this reference. There's still the new home state that is taking on the enforcement action. So they're saying interstate transfer.
Right, but the first state had to establish the order, right?
They did, correct.
Okay. Did the first state establish an order?
Is doing the enforcement.
Right. You can enforce an order.
Right.
Did the state of the home resident establish the order? No. Florida can't bring an action on behalf of somebody outside of Florida.
I'm going to say this. Now, I hear what you're saying. I agree with you. And even from what you've shown in other previous references or even case law, but one thing I'm coming to learn more and more is that there's these special circumstances, or what's the other word I want to use? These, I'm just going to say special circumstances that things seem to go directions that don't even make sense, but there is always an exception.
There's exception to the rules,
special
right?
Circumstances or special exceptions.
No, and I'm good. I'm good with that because there's rules and then there's exceptions to rules. That part is true, people. What should come from that would be then an order articulating that, not a PCA.
I agree. Right. Well, I'm going to say this. Again, not knowing the appellate rules, again, I don't know them for the state of Florida or any state to that level, because I realize there's exceptions to these rules, and it's an interesting playing field in regards to the exception with case law, the exception to the rule. Except you remember how that judge is giving his interpretation of the law of this. Remember, the judge gives his interpretation of what?
Well, his interpretation was right? his thing was that once you showed up, it waived the defense. Where the issue, where my arguable issue is that I can't show up to a action where the court had no subject matter jurisdiction. You don't have subject matter jurisdiction if it's not pled that gives the court jurisdiction. Because the court, the pleading party has to have not just the standing, but there has to be a basis that gives that court the ability to hear the case. Yes, under normal conditions, you can hear the case. But if you did not meet the prerequisites for the case, then the court does not have jurisdiction. I can't sue you in Washington, D.C. or Virginia for something that you did in Hawaii, or that may have taken place, in this case, in Spain. What would give that court jurisdiction? If I sued you in Florida, or asked Florida to sue you here for something that happened outside of where I've been and I just got to Florida yesterday because it happened in Hawaii, where would they get the jurisdiction? Because jurisdictional facts must be pled. Now, this is where process comes in.
Can I ask you this real quick, GD? Now, remember in your hearing, in your appellate hearing, he mentioned subject matter jurisdiction was based on paternity.
No,
And
no,
in fact,
no,
that's
no,
all it is.
no. No, it wasn't. He said it was based upon. He said the court had the jurisdiction to hear a child support establishment case.
Based on paternity, he said paternity. I
No,
didn't even mention paternity.
he's saying that they had results, and I said those were. I said what you all couldn't hear is that those results don't mean anything to me because it is a claim of it was a claim preclusion because it was already determined before Florida tried to grab it. It was determined back in 1989 in Texas. And this is what's interesting about this. For those who don't know, and CT, you said the audio was bad for the whole day, correct?
Yeah, it wasn't that good at all.
So people were saying they could hear the other side. Y'all could hear them. Nobody could hear us. It's almost like I wasn't speaking. So when you're saying he's saying this, I don't want to get into the conspiracy aspect of it.
Right.
But it's really interesting that he made claims as if I did not raise those issues in the appellate brief. And I'm gonna say this: I don't want to say that the judge was. And what's interesting is there was somebody who was there. He's not on the show tonight, but he was there, and he said he was offended by the way that the judge came out. He said the judge made all the arguments. And at one point, I said, well, you see that? This long arm jurisdictional issue is not something I'm arguing. My point is the state that would have had to have filed and established it is if it was North Carolina. I would not be arguing if it was North Carolina that established. If North Carolina served me in Florida, that would have been proper potentially. With the exception of the fact is I'd have to look at what's the basis for the jurisdiction. Did the acts take place in North Carolina? No. Where did the acts take place? If they would have taken place, it would have been in another country.
Man, you said Spain.
Germany.
But let me ask Germany. Let me ask you this real quick, GD. Not to jump your train of thoughts. There's some exception here that they're using, and the reason why I'm saying that, and again, that's just my limited, purview of all this. There has to be an exception. If there is not an exception, then you're being railroaded 1,000%.
Well, here's where I'm going to say this right here.
Realizing you're being railroaded.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. That would be speculative. Even if it had benefited me, it'd be speculation. My only point is, where's the order?
Okay, but I'm asking you this. Based on the appellate rules, do they have to give you a order with a level of conciseness and clarity to it? Is it mandated that they give you that?
No.
Or can they? Okay, so if it's not mandated, then that's the exception again. I'm using that word creatively. Then they have another option. Even if I don't want to say exception, they have another option in how they want to give the order. Like it will be ordered without any instruction. Any thoughts? I see you bringing something up.
That's why I'm asking for an en banc rehearing. That's what's going to happen tonight.
How many judges sit on that?
There's 3 on mine, but an en banc means all the judges have to come in and make a determination. And again, which is why I think it's 13 of them now. But here's where the issue comes up. And this is why I don't want anybody who's listening or watching me online as we go back and forth with this to be confused. It would help if somebody read the briefs and not just, well, he said this. Read the brief. Because if he read the brief, the issue is that they abused discretion by not dismissing it according to the rule. That was the brief. Not this other stuff. And then when he tried, go ahead.
But
those
my bad for cutting you off. Go ahead.
People who aren't there, who haven't seen it, and I think it would help people to go on to the YouTube and see if you can get that May 9th hearing and see if they may have cleaned up the audio, which would be interesting as well. It still doesn't tell the story that you would get by reading what was in front of the court. The court is not supposed to make determinations outside of what's in front of the court. And when they PCA'd it to affirm the lower court's decision, what you don't know is the lower court didn't rule on the issue of jurisdiction. Her ruling was based upon the fact that the trial court can't undo the finding of the hearing officer. That's not what I asked you to vacate. I asked you to vacate the recommendation because the court had no jurisdiction. So he confirmed an order that didn't address jurisdiction. And as we all know, you can't skirt jurisdiction. There has to be an answer on the issue of jurisdiction. He hasn't given an answer as to whether the court had jurisdiction.
So even though when he tried to finesse you, I'm using that word. Let me change my words.
Yeah, please do.
Because I heard them very right. I heard the judges.
He's saying that jurisdiction was confirmed by me making an appearance. My position was what comes before that.
You said from day one.
Right. My position is the court, you can't waive subject matter jurisdiction. I may have made a bad argument, but the liberal construction should be, it doesn't matter. He still has to review the docket. And if some procedures come before the substantial or fundamental right issue, what's the process? If the court didn't have jurisdiction, nothing else matters. He didn't address the issue.
If I remember correct, he based jurisdiction on
me showing up.
Subject matter related to.
No, he said it was waived. He said personal jurisdiction. He never ruled on subject matter jurisdiction. He never ruled on it, bro.
Okay, if I remember correct, I'm gonna go back and look at it.
Kyle, hold on. Kyle, CT, hold on. I know somebody who's seen it. CT, did he ever rule on the issue of subject matter jurisdiction?
No, not at all.
I'm not saying he ruled on it, but he did address it.
No,
he talked about personal. He talked about
only personal. He said it would have subject matter because it's a child support case or paternity case. But to have subject matter, but listen to me. To have you, okay, let me slow you down. We're in Florida. How does a Florida court have subject matter jurisdiction? For an action. No, I'm asking you. How did Florida acquire jurisdiction?
Well, look, that's $1 million question.
No.
But can I ask you this? I hear what you're saying to me. I'm just going off that moment from how I interpreted what was said. I'm not saying I have the whole,
But that's where it would confuse. That's where it would confuse the audience. And we could speculate about it.
But the way he came out,
I'm not worried about him. He didn't make the panel made the decision. And I'm going to appeal what the panel did. I can't appeal it to the Florida Supreme Court because the Florida Supreme Court has to have an order in order to review the order. I just don't get into these other directions. I find the rule, and as it says right here, I follow this rule. I don't get into the other stuff.
Yeah, you did your research, my brother. I see it. I mean, it makes sense to me. I see it in black and white.
I don't look for things that make sense. I just try to find things that follow the law.
But that's where the sense comes in my opinion, when it comes to how we argue
or how we present, you know, it has to be within that black and white context. And then it has to be understanding based on some sense of logic. I was only saying from the standpoint.
Whoa, it don't have to be based on logic. It has to be based upon some issue for which a rule would apply that I could give some sort of analysis to and a conclusion that a court can take under consideration. That's it.
It's big and specific.
I don't get into
I agree.
The other stuff may be good for like shows like this, but it's not good for getting to the end result. So if I'm wrong, then they're going to show me that I'm wrong at some point, and I can live with that. But if I'm reading the rule and the rule is clearly delineated, and let me do something real quick for people who are watching on the screen. I'm gonna pause the share because I don't want to pull up something. When I snatch this up, I'm going to show y'all something that I looked up the other day because it caught my attention because I didn't pay attention to the default, so that'd be my fault. But jurisdiction can be challenged at any time. So minus a law. Oh, here's where we're looking for here.
I want to ask you something, DD. I'm not trying to throw off your train of thought. I'm not doing this on purpose. It's just you're triggering thoughts in my mind. And I can see from the research you've done now from that experience, it's clear as day what you must do next if that's the choice you choose to take. What I'm really trying to ask in my replay of the event, as best I can recall them, the fact that he interpreted your brief the way he did, in conjunction to the way he came out.
But you're saying but you're forgetting there's a panel. There's a panel.
Okay, well, he did most of the talking from what I can recall from looking at the recording, and the other two female judges chimed in, you know, at certain parts, but he definitely took the lead. I'm saying he came out with the lead within those three. And so the question I have is that in his interpretation of how he interprets the law and your brief, what I'm asking you is, why do you think, in all this time you had now to replay it, why do you think
I don't care why you think. I don't think about why he might have done it, because that would take me somewhere away from what I'm actually here to do, which is to win. Worrying about his motive. You asked me what I think his motive is?
Yeah.
Okay. Now hold on. Let me answer your question. There's a lot more at stake than just me. And if my thing, and you can do your shows about this. I'm trying not to get the people off on something. I show them this is what they did, and this is what I'm going to do. I don't have time to sit here and try to read into his motives, because that won't get me where I want to go. I look at the law, and within the law, what I'll do is say, okay, do I have a possible remedy for what he did? And when I looked at it, I said, well, wow, this is kind of interesting. That's all I do, because otherwise I'll be like a dog chasing his tail. No offense to you, but I'm saying I don't do these things. That's not how that's never gotten me my results, is worrying about why they did something. I just look at what they did, and is what they did in conformity with what I understand to be well-established law. That's all I do. The other stuff does not matter to me.
Well, this is just my opinion. I hear you. We all have our. Let's slow down. We all have our method in how we come to our conclusions, or how we choose to move forward. And in that method, I know for me, I have a specific method in how I look at everything. Now, I give everything a certain amount of time, and I consider all variables and as much nuances as I can or exceptions. And the reason why I say that is that sometimes when you don't do that, you end up chasing your tail because the nuance or the exception was always right there. But you're like, no, I don't want to look at that. And I'm just saying for those who may look at it like that, you can miss the mark by not considering all factors and all possibilities. Now, I'm saying always have a time limit or a timeline, which is what I do in my own situations. I give it a certain timeline and then I move forward from there. But it gives me a basis of understanding in how, let's just say, if that was the final frontier or the final continuum, which in your case or other cases it isn't, if you're going to go pushing past, if you're going to get, if you go pushing for an appellate review and beyond that. But if you're not going that far with it, I like to, for me, I like to come to the summary of, okay, what just happened? So that way I can have a better understanding of, okay, will I encounter this again? See, for me, once it becomes how can I say this? Once it becomes a real reality outside of a possibility of something probable, then I now have to factor it in. That's how I do it. I factor it in. I give it so much time, but I don't totally discount it because as I come to understand and as you're saying as well, there are these exceptions. There's the rule and there's the exception, and that's heavy. Just like I was coming across something.
Hold on. This is what I would say is to this.
Go.
If it's a different kind of case, I can get it. And what you do is a little different. You're talking about a case involving consumer protection rights. That's not the kind of case I'm looking at. And you're talking about a case that involves a federal issue involving a certain prescribed set of rules. Because a lot of what you do comes under the FDCPA and the CPA and what have you, correct? That's not what I'm looking at.
No, I understand that. What I'm saying is, okay, let me do my best to be clear.
Okay, here you go. Here you go. I got the method. The method may work. That's not what's that's not what's in question. What's in question is what was the issue? What is the rule? You see that? Does anybody see that Quisenberry versus Bates?
I see it. This
No,
is my question.
Hold on. Do you see the? No. Do you see this is the Florida DCA case? Do you see the Quisenberry? What does it say?
It says that because the service of process is void, the clerk lacked the authority to enter default. So this is my thing. If you had that in there, I didn't read the brief, but if you had anything close to that or exactly that,
that's the
to me, I'm saying to myself, if you give them,
listen,
if you give them other DCA,
but here's where we're at though. It would be easier for us to have a discussion if you read the brief. I gave you the brief to read. Because then there's nothing speculative.
I know, but within my go ahead.
No, I get it. You had other things to do. It's in the brief.
Right.
So I'm not even.
This is my question to you. I apologize for cutting you off, but this is my question to you. If it's in the brief, and that's what I'm going with, it's in the brief. You wrote it. You know it. You presented it. The question is, why the ACLL?
I can't answer why he did what he did.
I see that.
I can't answer why somebody else did something. That's actually not even a sensible question. I'm just going to say I want the entire panel to come back en banc, and they could reject that because I think that's one of their rights. I don't asking me why they did what they did is not a reasonable question. My question is my thought was what they did was improper. That's all I care about.
Okay, but see, you just gave a reason right there. What they did was improper.
I said I felt what they did was improper, but why they did what?
That's the reason.
No, that's not the reason why. I don't know what the reason why he did what he did was. If you ask me why did they rule improperly, I don't know. If you ask me why I think he did it improperly, I can tell you he didn't read the brief.
But that's what I'm. So let's if you don't mind hovering right there. The reason why I'm asking you that, and I appreciate you letting me jump in on you like this, is that GD, it matters, and it matters because if he didn't read the brief, that points in a specific direction
that I don't want to go into. Now you're talking about public corruption. I don't want to go there. I would just rather focus on what's in front of me. What I think in that matter may be different.
Go ahead.
What I think for that is different. But no, here you go. Instead of us talking about, here's the brief. And by the way, anybody who's looking out there, this is the appellate brief. I don't want to sit here and keep going back and forth about this. Here's the brief. And if I gave it to somebody, the discussion is not legitimate if we're not talking about things that are factually alleged. Because otherwise we're spinning in a bunch of directions. Here's the brief. Here's the brief.
But you know what?
Here's the brief.
There's only so many forces that. Go ahead. Okay.
Here's the brief. No, here's the brief. No, here's the brief. This is all I'm going to ask them to do is come back and read the brief. I'm going to ask them to read the brief.
Right.
I'm going to ask the panel to review the brief.
Go ahead.
I'm going to ask the panel to review the brief. And then if they say no, then I'll deal with it. But at the same time, I can now file a writ of certiorari to the United States Supreme Court because it's a question of great public importance. That would be my strategy. Now, all the other stuff, I don't get it. I don't get into those. That's just not how I approach things. I look at what's in front of me and how to go about doing it. And here it is. Here this all this other stuff is here. But here's the brief question. My issue. The trial court abuses discretion by not dismissing the case because MNMAC failed to effect service based upon the 1995 law requiring service after filing the initial complaint within 120 days. They never show good cause for not serving the process and without the lower court granting an extension of time to serve process. So the issue is, do they have the ability to serve you? And by the way, if you knew about the due process primer, you know that anything that happens outside of a reasonable time automatically will require reversal because it'd be a due process violation because it would almost operate as if you weren't served at all. But that's something else I've seen you, but I've already sent you. You see this right here? All I want them to do is give me a ruling on this. Why doesn't get me anywhere? It's good for conversation and debate, maybe, but that's not where I am, and that's not what I do. I'm only here to say I want a ruling. I want a ruling on the issue of the hold on a second. On what the federal rule required you to do, and if the federal rule doesn't apply, then that would be a different issue. The 4M rule. Just come from here. And that would be in the low what the hell is this damn case? And again, I don't know what's going to happen. I could outright just lose. That would be okay. But what I'm going to do is what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to go back and forth about it because that's this issue. My issue is, did the trial court abuse its discretion when it didn't follow the well-established rule? That's all I want to know about. Not why, who, what, who shot what. Is did the trial court abuse discretion? All they had to do is say the trial court operated within its rights by disregarding the docket's evident facial flaw, because I'm saying it's a facial defect, by disregarding it and saying that Doss waived his right. If it was as simple as what he said, it would make sense. Logically, you just would issue an order saying that, not PCA it.
That you waive your right. That you waive your right.
That's not what they did. They gave me a PCA. If they given me an order that stated that, no, I sent this email to you as well. They PCA'd it. And when I asked I asked attorneys about it, they said, including two that were there.
But let me ask you this: even with those two attorneys, have they ever argued on an appellate level?
One has, one hasn't. But he hadn't argued on a state appellate level. But what he said was, the one that spoke to me right after it, who showed up, said, all we talked about is you can't waive subject matter jurisdiction. And to have subject matter jurisdiction, you have to have a properly effected service of process. That's the rule. So what they did, I would rather not. I think it defeats the purpose to speculate it here. I'm going to ask the court the question, and then I'll have an answer. Hopefully, I'm going to get an answer either way. I'm not going to I wouldn't sit up here and continue to think about why did they do that. I'm going to sit back and say, okay, I'm going to continue to ask questions until I get an answer or I get a ruling. That's it. But by the way, I'm running out of time because I got until 12. Well, actually, I got 15 days, so I have a little bit more time. But I want to get this done tonight while it's still on my mind. But the bigger question would be, did the trial court abuse its discretion when it didn't dismiss the case? That's it. That's it to me. Did the trial court's responsibility to look at the docket precede or supersede my responsibility in not raising it without being adequately advised of my rights during a proceeding? That's a different set of questions. I just understand how to put them together. Because what comes first? What comes first, process or fundamental right?
Fundamental right.
I don't think so. It's process.
So you're saying our fundamental rights don't come first?
Well, there's a process involved in it. You can have a fundamental right, and the fundamental right stands so long as your due process rights are not upset by whatever the process is. Due process is, okay, you have a right to this. Like, you can't lose life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Now, what the courts have came back and determined in some instances is you can have an immediate pre-deprivation or post-deprivation hearing on that matter. Say take your license.
But that's the duality that exists. That's the duality that exists.
No, I get that. So I'm gonna let the court make the determination. I can't make the determination. Otherwise, I say, okay, what you would have done was essentially just did what the law required, what I think the law required you to do. They said he didn't say anything. I don't have an answer at all. They didn't give me an answer. Right. So when they give me an answer to that specific question, then I can better articulate what happened. Now we don't have an answer. We just have a PCA.
Right.
And they're affirming an order that did not address jurisdiction. My question was about jurisdiction. But what you're talking about, I'm trying to figure out, what are you talking about? The question was about jurisdiction. And they affirmed the lower court's ruling, which wasn't about jurisdiction. The lower court, I'm pulling up the order. I'm pulling up the order. The lower court said they can't rule on an issue that a hearing officer had made a determination on. That's what I'm pulling it up for you.
You know what I'm realizing? You know what's hitting me, GD, and this is a good mastermind. I know it seems like a debate, but it's a good brain stimulator or thought stimulator, and I'm gonna give you my quick reasoning why. The very nature of the legal process in the, how can I say this? I want to say it in a more simplified way without using the legal jargon.
Okay, hold on. That's a different discussion than what I'm talking about right now. I want you to look at this. This is what the trial court said. Look at number 2. All that matters is this. The trial court is bound by the hearing officer's finding unless they are not supported by competent substantial evidence. Okay. If there's no witness, then it's not competent and substantial anyway. The findings are based on a clearly erroneous departure from the essential requirements of applicable law. If they never sworn anybody, he never had any evidence or testimony. Before granting a motion to vacate a child support hearing officer's report, it should carefully determine whether the party's motion to vacate is based upon at least one of those 2 factors. Now, within the motion to vacate,
Done in order.
Done in order. Done in order. The court never heard this order to vacate for lack of subject matter jurisdiction. They never heard it.
Because?
They walked me out of the room.
It says see court's order on notice to vacate. Okay.
Yeah, but
I mean, you know your case. Go ahead.
Right. So what it does is we're raising issues that don't apply to what's going on. So if there's other people listening, so they're confused. So now they'll say, well, but by the way, if you're out there listening still and you want the information or you're watching me on YouTube, just email me and I'll send it to you so that you have a better understanding. Because otherwise, we're convoluting an issue. I'm not talking about my civil case. I'm not talking about appealing an issue in my civil case that hasn't been resolved. I'm talking about a specific issue to subject matter jurisdiction. It hasn't been addressed. And you can't disregard the question of subject matter jurisdiction or personal jurisdiction properly. It hasn't been addressed. They didn't address it there. He talked about the personal jurisdiction, but the trial court has an obligation, even an appellate court has a duty to recognize if it had jurisdiction or if the trial court didn't have it. That's just a duty of the court. So why he did not notice it, that's kind of bothersome to me. But the other side of it is, it doesn't make any sense to discuss something that's not in play. What's in play is that PCA. What's in play is that I filed a brief. What's in play is that there are other issues.
Go ahead.
It was in play. There's another issue.
Go ahead.
And at the same time, that's what I have to address. Let me help you out with something.
I'm gonna say. Let me say this, GD. Now remember. Let me get calm my thoughts. I hear what you're saying. It's not that I disagree with the basis and where you're coming from. It's not that. What I'm saying is how I look at the method of how someone comes to their, interpretation of the law and their.
But that's a different issue. You're attached to. Have you his decision? But they made a decision on an order that did not address jurisdiction. That's improper. My issue is jurisdiction.
Okay, can I ask you this? Can I say this? Okay, can I say this real quick? I hear what you're saying. I'm doing my best to kind of chop my thoughts to get straight to the point. The point I'm saying is, whether it's done intentionally or unintentionally or by error or by negligence or by waiver or however the basis of it is happening, the rules that are set up within the court system, these things happen. That's why you have appellate review and based on your
I agree with that. Then address the rule. What's the rule?
But it's also, well, think about it. If they can, what I'm saying is, they gave it to you from how they give it to you based on their interpretation, based on how they understood the facts of the.
We don't know that if he gave me a PCA though. He gave me a PCA, so there's no order, so we don't know what he thought.
No, but that's the whole point. He gave you something. A PCA is not nothing. No. Even though it doesn't, what I'm saying is, even though it doesn't say nothing, even though it says nothing, he still gave you something within the rule that allowed him to give you the PCA. If there wasn't a rule for PCA, he couldn't give you a PCA. So he gave you within the rule.
I'm not arguing that. That's not what's argued. But I don't know how he addressed why he didn't address the issue of jurisdiction. So I'm going to ask the entire panel to come back and address the issue of did the court. My only question is, did the court have did they abuse discretion by not doing what the law said? And if they didn't have any jurisdiction, the court has to take notice of its lack of jurisdiction. And by the way, this you're arguing about. So you didn't see this, right? You see that? There's no order. That's all they gave me.
Yeah, affirm. Right.
No, Per Curran.
I looked it up right now. I looked Per Curran. Right. Affirm. Per Curran affirm. Now I read with that. I just looked it up real quick. It says Per Curran affirm means that the appellate court affirms the trial court. Same thing you were saying earlier. That there was not no. You said there was no order. If I remember your words correct. So let me stick to the
no order addressing jurisdiction. My discussion. No order addressing jurisdiction. Not all this other stuff, SG. It's jurisdiction is the issue. If the court had no jurisdiction, the court has no order. Why are we going on to the other stuff? It's simple. Did they have jurisdiction or not?
Mm-hmm. Oh, but you okay. What I'm saying is you argued one over the other, but you're saying you argued both in your brief. That's what you're saying,
right? But
I'm just saying. But I remember him.
But the fact you didn't hear anything. But you didn't hear. But you didn't hear anything I said, right?
No, it was very muffled, man.
Okay, so here we go. You're listening. You listened to one side and didn't hear anything I said.
I know it's messed up. I know. I agree.
Well, no, I don't know if it's messed up, but
people like me.
But you're arguing from something. You see that right there? You see that?
Can you zoom in a little more? Can you
Okay.
zoom in, if you don't mind? You can zoom in? Yeah, a little. That way I don't have to. Okay. Because I want to keep your screen the way I have it. I don't want to.
You see this right here?
I don't want to throw the setting off the screen.
They never addressed the issue. They never addressed the jurisdictional question. They never did.
Let me read it. I'm going to read it real. See court's order on notice to vacate prior order and dismiss case based on lack of subject matter jurisdiction and lack of personal jurisdiction entered in January 28, 2013. See also court order on respondents written in nature of notice to dismiss on grounds of fact of error entered November 21st, 2013. See also court's order obligors amended motion to dismiss action and grant relief void prior order ab initio with supplemental counterclaim. Second amended motion to dismiss action.
What's that? What's that right there? What comes first? What comes first?
January 28, 2013.
But what comes before a court can issue? Before a court can issue an order, what comes first? What does the court have to issue an order? Now I'm giving. No, now we're giving away stuff for free, which is not a problem, but it's also it's almost a feckless argument. Let me show you something. And if the question just wants to be asked, I mean, I can just answer the question. Okay, now that the show is over.
Trial court must take notice its lack of subject matter lack of subject matter jurisdiction. Okay. And even not raised. Okay.
No. Because you now that nobody can hear now. We're all, but now you're actually on some kind of way. But here we go. But I want you to look at something. But this is the issue. This is the issue. It's one thing to come on and we discuss it and it makes sense. But I gave you information to study so that you don't ask these questions as if these aren't things that were already raised. You see that? And that's the 11th Circuit, by the way. What's that say?
Okay. Although not raised by either party in the case, the court has an obligation to inquire into subject matter. Okay, now the court, go back real quick. It said the court has a, go back. It says the court has a obligation. Okay. It has an obligation. Now, so think about it, GB. Just because things are obligated, doesn't mean.
But my thing is, if it's obligated, it means they must. If they don't have any jurisdiction, they don't have any jurisdiction. I don't have to raise the issue.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm saying is right. You should not have to. But think about that.
Look, okay. Here you go. Here you go. Instead of us going back and forth, read that. Although the jurisdictional issue discussion in the opinion was not raised by either party, courts are bound to take notice of the limits of their authority, and if one of jurisdiction appears at any stage, original or appellate, the court should notice the defect and enter the appropriate order. There's no order.
It's clear as day. So this goes back to my earlier.
It becomes an empty argument to ask why they didn't do it. My job, my responsibility to myself is to find out why they didn't, and then exercise whatever options are available to me. That's it.
But that's still a question. Right, but that's still a question you're asking. When you say
no, that's the question. That's the question I'm going to ask. No, that's the question I'm going to present the issue is, did the trial court abuse its discretion when it didn't have jurisdiction? And if the court liberally construes it and says, no, they didn't because of this, then that's the end of it. But without an order, I don't have an order. You're talking as if there's an order. There is no order that addresses jurisdiction.
I understand that. I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying, and just remember, I'm looking at all dimensions as you are, but I'm just saying I have my own method and how I'm looking at it. So, because my thing is, I'm always going to ask why, when, where, how.
That's all fine. That's all fine if it works for you. But that's not. I'm not here to say whose method works better. My method is my point is, now I'm sitting at a situation where I don't have an order on an issue of jurisdiction when that's the question I asked the court.
Right, but you do have a remedy in which you can exercise.
And there you go. But you didn't say, is there a remedy? Because I showed you the remedy. You're saying
you did it right.
No, but you're asking why and why they didn't do this. I don't have to get into that. My thing is, okay, you didn't answer it. I'm going to go ahead and deal only with what's in front of me, which is, okay, they didn't answer the question, and you wasted my time in here because you didn't answer the question. I feel a certain kind of way, but I had to put that to the side and say, let me address this issue from a legal approach and say, okay, here's the information. They didn't do this. Let me address that, not why they didn't do that. And if you have an issue where you have an appeal that comes up or an issue that you want to address that way, that's fine. But they didn't answer the question of jurisdiction. And my issue was solely, did the court have jurisdiction? Not anything else. Nothing else. Did the court have jurisdiction to enter any order at all? And at any point, was there some event that occurred that would have divested the court of jurisdiction? That's the only question, bro. Nothing else. Did they serve me within the 120 days? There's a rule, right? Here's the issue. 120 days service. They didn't do that. Okay, they amended the complaint outside the original 120 days without a notice of good cause, nor an extension from the court, nor permission to amend the complaint. They served the amended complaint outside of the next 120 days. The clerk issued a default on a complaint that was served outside of the rule. Does the court have jurisdiction? That's the only issue. But no, I'm going to get off the line because I have work to do tonight. otherwise it becomes a circular discussion.
No, I understand.
So I'm gonna tell everybody
No,
who's
no, no,
watching
no, no,
on
no,
the live. I
Go ahead.
will catch
Go
up
ahead.
with you all on the live later on. Next time, make sure you all take the time to look at the on the live to plug into the Zoom link as well. And from there, but tonight I got work to do, but from there you'll get a better idea when you actually are participating in the show. The live is still going on. I almost forgot about that when I started having this discussion, which is a little bit different than I expected. But for those out there, the issue is jurisdiction, and does the court have jurisdiction? And to that question, I still don't have an answer. So I'm going to file an appeal based solely on whether or not the trial court ever had jurisdiction to enter an order. So with that being said, I'm going to close out the stream because my blog talk show is already done because it maxed out at its time. I will let you all, I'll keep you updated on my progress. I'm about to file this motion for en banc review tonight, as well as I will file another motion into the trial court challenging the trial court's lack of subject matter jurisdiction to get an order. And hopefully somebody out there, if you have anybody out there who knows how to do the split screen, I have OBS, and I also have some other operating systems that allow me to show me on the Facebook Live and the screen as well. And we can delve into the information so that we can come to what's a plausible conclusion. Beyond that, I didn't show you all on the screen for the Zoom the judge's attorney. Well, actually, it's the state because the state is representing Greg Holder, which I think is improper because I didn't sue the judge. I sued the guy. The state's representing him, and the state is wanting an extension of time. But I told the state I thought it was improper for them to be representing him. He should be hiring his own counsel, unless there's some rule that allows the state to represent him, even if he's in his individual capacity, because you can't sue a judge. The judge has absolute immunity, but nobody has absolute immunity from falsely accusing you of a crime. So with that being said, I'm going to end the stream, probably cut this up a little bit. I might just leave it up here like this. And but this will be the last one that'll be this long and will be more direct. That being said, as always, imparting, sometimes it's not about right or wrong. More important, it's about clarity. And you'll never reach resolution if you're not willing to engage in honest dialogue, even if that dialogue is with yourself. Take time to hug the person you love and love the person you hug. And on behalf of GD, non-attorney pro se consultants, 100 plus productions, and every one, and Street Elements magazine, I'm Greg Doss. I'm saying peace. I'm saying chicken grease. I'm out of here.